This next one's just kind of weird. I think it's mostly because his giant teeth. I like his concept though. I think he's supposed to be like a messenger, but I think that's really the only thing I like about him. His hair on his face is weird and doesn't really fit. He's got too much blue on him. The orb on his tail's kind of cool, but it doesn't really make sense, and it kind of adds more to that too much blue. Also, I wish we got a better glimpse of the hat he's wearing, because this is really the only perspective you can see it from, which kind of sucks. So, he's definitely not the greatest. He gets a 5 out of 10. This next one's pretty cool. He's primarily got a lot of crystal on him, mainly from his wings and his horns and his floating gem at his tail, which is a pretty cool idea. Similar to the previous dragon, he's got too much of one color, and he's also almost a thick boy, but not quite there. It's all mainly in the hips. Overall, he's pretty good. He gets a 8 out of 10. Next up we have Cyrus, and the first thing you'll notice about him is all the candles that are attached to him, like on his hat and his horns. Makes him feel a little bit more mystical than the rest of these wizards. I also really like his getup. Like, he's got like this neck thing, but it's also attached to his hat. Also, his little stomach pattern's kind of interesting, because I think it's the only dragon that does that has like a stripe pattern on the stomach. I think a majority of them just have one singular color. This one definitely stands out and is the highest peak dragon, who literally lives in a peak, so of course he's getting a 10 out of 10. Alright, before I wail in onto this dragon, I'm gonna name the few positive things I like about it. First thing I'll name is his staff. It's got a cool design without being too overcomplicated, and the other thing is his skin color. It's an interesting, like, sea foam green almost. Alright, on to the negatives. The biggest problem I probably have with him is his face. It's really pudgy. I think that's the best way I can describe it. It's all like scrunched up. It's just like nothing but fat in his entire face. Also, I really don't like his eyes. They look dead. He's almost got like zombie eyes to an extent. Also, his horns kind of make him look like a goat rather than a dragon. So for me, he's a 3 out of 10. Definitely not one of my favorites. Next we have Cedric, who's kind of more interesting because he's almost like a wizard, but not like too over the top with it without having like a wizard hat and like a robe or something. I also like that he's orange. I haven't seen a lot of orange dragons, but I think it's really well done here along with the mix of the yellow. The only thing I really don't like about him is his green tail. It's all fuzzy and it kind of stands out from the rest of his design because he wouldn't seem like someone who would grow fur. But I guess he does kind of have like a goatee there, which fits. But also it's not like a weird color, so rather than that, he's a pretty solid 7 out of 10. Okay, I really don't like this one. In my opinion, this dragon has like the worst combination of colors. First off, he's got this really disgustingly bright yellow, and then he's got these wings, which are almost like a teal color, and they both kind of contrast with each other, and it just really sticks out. I guess the purple's okay, it's a little bright, but that's the only decent color on him. Also, the orange on his face, I don't know if that's like supposed to be lips or like a beak or something, but I don't like that at all. I think the only thing I really like about him is his getup, but rather than that, no. 4 out of 10. Ooh, this one's good. Again, we have like another messenger here, but it's a lot more obvious. But yeah, his entire like getup and clothing is probably the best thing about him. I also like his colors. He's almost skin tone, but not quite. It's kind of a very light orange. Also, it looks like his horns are made out of wood. I don't know if that was the point or not, but those are pretty interesting. Yeah, I don't really have a single bad thing to say about him. He gets a 7.5 out of 10. This one's a more unique one out of the bunch. It definitely has one of the more interesting designs. As you can see, he has a bunch of rotating parts on him, like the levitating ball on his head and the ring around his tail. But one of the better details, which is shown in the cutscene, is that this is the dragon that's supposed to tell you the secret in Artisans, and he has directions written on his wings, like almost like a treasure map, which is one of the best details on any of these dragons. Also, I really like his facial hair. It doesn't stand out too much. It's over the top, but it's not like obnoxious. Also, I like the way his horns kind of curve around the ball. The only negative I can really mention is that his eyes are just really small and kind of dorky looking. It's not creepy, but I think if they just made them a little bigger, they would stand out less. So this is a pretty solid design, 7.5 out of 10. Alright, this is the last one for magic crafters, and this one kind of reminds me of an owl. I don't know if it's just like all the feathers he has on his wings or like the colors he's got. But another detail he shares with the previous one was the curved horns, except they're more twisty. But easily the most standout thing about him is this weird mystical orb he has. It's never really shown in action what it does, so it just kind of adds to that mystery of being this weird old man. From what I can see, he has a pretty good design. Again, this one gets another 7.5 out of 10. Okay, so now we're on to Beastmakers, which is home to some of the more weirder dragons. But anyway, here we have Bruno, and he's got a lot of weird things about him, like he's got these unproportioned horns, he's got like fish gills on him. And he's got this staff that almost looks like it's made out of dragon horns, but these are all positives. He's also got like this weird lizard tail, which is kind of spiky. He's also got this really strange hat. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be, just an oval of fur. Kind of reminds me of a British soldier hat, but all these weird aspects make for a good design, and he gets a solid 7 out of 10. Okay, now we have a really weird one. This one definitely fits more with the swamp aesthetic. He's got like a lily pad leaf, he's like covered in moss. He's just this big green Goliath that looks a little more like a swamp monster than an actual dragon. I also like that even his beard is like a little leaf. I guess one thing I don't really understand about him is the bag thing he has on his neck. I'm not sure what that has to do with him at all. He's alright. He gets a 6 out of 10. This one I like a lot. So something I said before was one of the dragons had a beak and it looked weird. I think this is a good example of how to do that right and make it look good. And I think a part of that is the colors and how they match more so than that previous one. Another thing I really like about him is that he has a bit more of a tribal aesthetic. He's almost more like a shaman. I guess the only thing I can really name that I don't like is how small his wings are. I think it would have been cool if they were bigger and they had maybe skulls hanging from them or something. Also, this is a dragon that kind of combines beef with thick, where it's just this really interesting combination, and I think it works out pretty good. He's an 8 out of 10. Okay, first thing we gotta talk about with this one is his pose. This is just the most iconic thing from this game and also the original. He's just a sassy boy. Also, this one has a unique stomach. It's not like stripes though. It's got a little swirly, but still pretty cool. I'm also getting some farmer vibes because of that little wheat in his mouth, and also his accent. Also, his horns are pretty cool. They're almost like bull horns, but they're not like overly gigantic. I like the fact that he's also got kind of a lazy eye. It's pretty alright. He gets a 7.5 out of 10. Okay, this one is easily one of my favorites in the entire game. Literally nothing wrong with this one. He's got these weird horns, he's got like a mohawk, he's got some spiky sideburns, he's got some crazy loon eyes, he's got this crazy huge staff. In his animations, he's all weird and wacky and bizarre. He's got some strange out of place goatee, but who cares? This is easily one of the best ones in the entire game. 10 out of 10. Alright, this next one's kind of interesting because unlike being like a weird swamp dweller, this one's more fitting with the magic crafters. He's more of like a witch. Aside from that, I also like his weird purple beard along with his small kind of black vest. I wish he kind of like was carrying around a cauldron and you kind of like awakened him while he was like stirring something up. I don't know. He's a decent dragon. He's a 6 out of 10. Alright, this one's really unique. Kind of looks like one of those snouted turtles almost, just without a shell. But it also has like the colors of one, so that's pretty cool. I also like how he's got like a net and a bunch of snails attached to him, like he's been living in the water or something. I guess the one thing I really don't like is his wings. I wish they weren't like the color pattern, they were a completely different color, but that's alright. He's a pretty good dragon. He's an 8 out of 10. This next one is also a dragon I think a lot of people really like, and I think he's okay. He's definitely got beef. He's pretty big. I also like the shade of blue they went with, but a lot of things I don't like about him is that his wings kind of look stiff. In the cutscene, they don't look very practical at all. One other thing is all the fur he has. It's just shoulder pads, pretty much. I wish it was kind of more almost like armor, but it just looks weirdly placed. I also kind of like his horns and his spiky kind of beard. He's a decent design. He's a 6.5 out of 10. This was one of the first dragons to be revealed in the demo, and from the moment I saw him, I was really excited to see the rest of the dragon designs. He's still one of my favorites. He's got really good colors. He almost kind of reminds me of a lizard. He's also got like a really cool staff. I also like his mohawk and horns. The only complaint I really have for him is that he's got some slight face pudge, but it's not really a big deal because it's kind of like spread out and not like squished together on one area in his face. This one is an easy 9 out of 10. When that demo released for Treetops, it showed off 3 dragons, and out of the 3, this one was easily my favorite. First off, the colors are really good, and they even like match the fruit. Although he's not wearing a lot of clothing like the rest of the beast makers are, I think he makes up for it in the rest of his design. He's got like a lot of crests. His horns are like in a different shape. They're coming forward instead of coming out the side of his head. His wings are really different. They're not like feathered or scales. Also, he's probably the most perfect thick boy. He's not too thick, but his proportions are just correct to be a perfect pear shape. Also in game, he has like the best voice in the entire game. Whoever that voice actor is, he better have gotten some good pay.
Greetings, Spyro. For an amazing tour of the treetops, don't just stop at one supercharge.
I don't think anything else needs to be said. This is easily one of the best. 10 out of 10. Before, when I was referring to some of these dragons as like shamans or like witch doctors, I think this one kind of wins the cake. And also his weird colors kind of add to that mystery of just being really bizarre looking. I really think the only thing they should have changed is the hat. I think if they made the hat more unique to him, it would have been a more interesting design. But it's certainly not a bad one. He gets a 7 out of 10. Alright, this next one's pretty cool. For this one, he's got like some thick, but there's also like a presence about him. It's hard to describe, it's not like the ones before, but he seems more like a leader. I also like the 4 horns that he has on his head, makes him appear more menacing. Also his staff's cool. I guess my only real problem with him is that I wish maybe his purple was a little darker. I think it would add more to his leader-like presence. This is a pretty good dragon. He gets a 9 out of 10. Alright, now we're on to Dreamweavers, the last world. So our first one is Zikomo, and he kind of stands out a lot more because he's got a lot more detail on him. Like, he's got the swirls on his stomach, he's got a way more exotic pattern on his body. His horns kind of look like croissants. Also, I think he's holding an hourglass. It almost looks like a lamp, but still somewhat interesting. I guess this more interesting design kind of also backfires it. He's one of the more cartoony designs in the game. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that like it's more like stylized and looks like it came from some other cartoon instead of this game, but it also makes him a little more unique from the rest. His design is pretty alright. He gets a 7 out of 10. Now this dragon kind of reminds me of something that should be in Magic Crafters. He's very mystical looking, and he's kind of got like that wizard getup almost, but his colors kind of match this level more. He's also kind of got like a weird almost feather tail. I also like the almost earrings he has in his horns. I think this design would work a lot more if they just went full out wizard, but he's still pretty good. He gets a 7.5 out of 10. Okay, this is a really good design from Dreamweavers. He has like a guru thing going on. He's got some really interesting clothing, especially the necklace. I really like his wings, which are like a night sky almost. But I also like the shades of blue just spread out across his entire body. It's not too simple, but it's also not over the top. Definitely one of my favorites. He gets a 10 out of 10. Alright, this next one's kind of interesting because it's an example of almost too much thick, and I'm specifically talking about the tail. They're trying to do a thing where like he kind of relaxes on his tail, but if he weren't like laying on his tail, it'd look really bizarre if he was just like standing normally with this fat tail behind him. It almost looks painful. But anyway, this one also kind of looks more like a wizard, but less so. It's almost like pajamas in a way. I also really like his paint colors but I really don't like the black spot on his face. I think it contrasts a little too much. Also, his hat's a little weird. It's almost like a sleeping cap, but then it's just got some weird blob at the top. Just comes out really weird. Kind of an interesting design. Could have been done better. He gets a 6 out of 10. This one's really cool. This one kind of reminds me of like a mythical Chinese dragon, especially like the whiskers. Also, another really cool detail is that he's got like constellations on his wings, but also on like his glasses. I'm not sure if those are like actual constellations or if they just made their own patterns. This is just a really good design. He gets a 10 out of 10. This next dragon is a good example of doing something simple but not doing it too simple. When you see him, he doesn't have too much detail on him, like he doesn't have a lot of clothing or whatever. But he makes up for it in colors and other details. He's also got like the starry wings, but you can also see like a swirly pattern on his body. I also like the fact that for horns he has a giant like moon stuck in his head. I also like his hunched pose, which makes him stand out from the more serpent-like dragons. The one thing that really bugs me though is that he only has like one tooth. If maybe they gave him another fang, it wouldn't stand out as much as it does. It's just something I find really annoying. But rather than that, he's a pretty solid design. He gets a 9 out of 10. So this next one I really don't like at all. I think his main problem is that he just looks way too goofy. I literally can't take him seriously because of that stupid hat he wears. I think the only things I really like about him are his curved fangs and that huge staff with the rotating rocks. But rather than that, he's just kind of a meh design. Also, I think that's supposed to be crystal on his tail, but it looks like blocks of cheese. I don't know. I really don't like it, not one bit. He gets a 4 out of 10. This one is probably one of the cutest dragons in the entire game. He's got some pretty cool swirls on his body, and he's also got a lot of blue, but it doesn't like clash too much with each other. But easily the best part about him is all the clothing he has. He's basically wearing pajamas. He's got little sleeping caps on all of his horns, including the ones on the side of his face and his chin. This man is just ready to pass out the moment he has a second to lay down. Also, his wings are kind of interesting. They got like shingles on them, but the pattern is almost kind of like a sheet pattern for a blanket. He gets a 7.5 out of 10. Now on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, we probably have the most ugly dragon in the entire game. This is where there's just too much thick. Again, it's all clogged up in his neck. It looks like he's suffocating. He looks in pain, pretty much. But not only that, his eyes and just his general tone and expression is creepy. I'm getting like weird fanboy vibes, because in game his voice is just very slow and creepy. Ugh, I don't like it one bit.
Berries are always on your side, Spyro.
Okay, now we have something I actually love. This man is, again, peak dragon. So much unique about him. His colors are so good. He's got some really cool curved horns. I like his cap. He's wearing some really cool overalls. I love his laid-back demeanor. He's got a cool swirly pattern on his stomach. This is just one of the best. The only negative I can come up with is, like, again, what is he supposed to be? I see he's got a fishing pole and, like, a thing of bait, but the bait is dragon teeth? First of all, where is he getting dragon teeth from? And second off, what is he fishing for? He's up in, like, the sky or whatever. Is he fishing for dreams? I don't know. But who cares? I love him. He is definitely 10 out of 10. This one is one of the more weirder ones that I actually kind of like. He's got some weird electric property in his horns. He has like a blanket as like a robe. He's got hair on his neck and arms. He's also got a cool stomach design. I'm not sure if he's supposed to be something specific at all. He's got a weird mix of colors, just a lot of bizarre things about him, but he's certainly not bad. He's a 6 out of 10. So here's another one I love. He's got like a leaning down mohawk. He's got this giant ass goatee, which is really cool. Again, this is another dragon with kind of that candle thing, but I think this one fits a little more. He's also got some really good colors. They're a little more darker and they make him more mysterious, especially his like black wings. Also, the pattern on his body kind of reminds me of those objects you would put in the middle of your room as a kid, where it'd, like, light up the ceiling with like patterns and lights. If that's what that's supposed to be, that's actually a really amazing detail. But even if that's not, it's still really cool. He's definitely a 10 out of 10. This is another really cool one. He's got like a genie vibe going on. He has an interesting getup. It's very unique from the rest. He almost has like this portrait on his stomach of like a night sky, which is cool. But I think my favorite part about him is all the colors he's got. He's got like a pretty good shade of green. He's got a lot of really bright pinks on him, especially in like his horns. I guess the one thing that's kind of distracting though is his ears. They almost look like donkey ears or like rabbit ears. And I wish they kind of just removed those. But rather than that, I really like him. He's an 8 out of 10. I don't really have much to say about this next one. It's just kind of okay. His design's really simple. His colors are alright. His gimmick's supposed to be like a coffee drinker, but I wish they gave him more like pajamas to make him seem like he's just sleeping all the time, and the only thing keeping him up is the coffee. But I don't know. His design's kind of basic. It's not bad, but I think they could have added a little more. He's a 6 out of 10. This one is actually really cool. The most notable thing is his musical instruments. And of course he's got like the tuning things on his tail, and he's wearing a giant harp. But another detail I didn't notice until I watched the video was he's got the shape of a cello on his stomach. Also, he's definitely a perfect shape of thick. He's not too big, but he's not like too small either. He's got a pretty good getup as well, and his blue hair is not distracting from the rest of his features. He's got pretty cool facial hair as well, so this is a good boy. This is an 8 out of 10. Alright, here we are, the last dragon. It's been a long journey, but I think this one is a pretty good one to end it on. So this one's really unique because he's got a whole yarn gimmick going on. His entire body is covered in like a giant sweater, which is really interesting. Also, he's kind of got that horn thing that one of the previous ones had, except it's not levitating and it's just a giant yarn ball, which is cool. The one thing I really don't like is the thing that's hanging off his neck. I have no idea what that's supposed to be. This is a really cool dragon. Really interesting and unique. He gets a 10 out of 10 from me. Oh boy. Now that we're done with all those dragons, this is what the final tier list should look like. Overall, I think the artist did a good job taking these simple polygon creatures and turning them into something meaningful. I think you should go check out these guys, not only to see their other art, but to look at concept art, which some are better than the actual in-game models. I'll put links to them in the description below. Anyway, that's about it. Also, a quick thank you for enduring my monotone voice. I don't really record things very often, so I don't really know how to accentuate properly. Yep. I don't know how to end one of these. Bye.